World War I Death Penny. Awarded to 37152 Private John Shackleton, 7th Battalion, East Yorkshire Regiment. John was born in Midgley, Yorkshire, in 1891. Before the war he'd worked at the worsted mill. He was wounded in April 1917 by a gunshot to his right arm. John was present at Bapaume during the German Spring Offensive in 1918. It is there, on March 24th, when he was killed in action, aged 27. World War I Trio, 217523 Private Robert Curry, 2nd Battalion Royal Scots Fusiliers. Born in 1874, he lived with his widowed mother in a poor house in Ayrshire. At age 17, he worked in the coal mines and lived with his uncle in Cowinning, Scotland. In 1899, he married a woman named Jeanie, and they had 8 children. He arrived at the front with the 2nd in April 1915. He took part in many battles, including Aubers, Loos, Malta Horn, Guillemot, Arras-Lys, and Flanders. At the Somme, his battalion lost 398 men alone, leaving less than 120 fit for action. He died in 1960, aged 85. World War I Medals and Death Penny. Awarded to 235037 Private Oliver Carter, 1st and 5th Battalion, Liverpool Regiment. Born 1878, Suffolk, England, he came from a very large family. He worked as a labourer, aged 23 in 1901, and was married to a woman named Beatrice in 1908. They had 3 children named Oliver, Ernest, and Queenie. He arrived in France in 1916 with the 1st and 5th, part of the 165th Brigade, 55th Division. After surviving the Somme, he was killed by German artillery at Ypres salient on April 19, 1917. He's buried at Vlamertinghe, Belgium. A brave young man. Medals Award to 3468183 Gunner James W. Henderson M.M., 163rd Siege Battery. James was awarded Britain's 3rd highest award for bravery, the Military Medal, in June 1918 for actions at the front in France. Before joining the 163rd, James was with the 4th Artillery Garrison in Edinburgh, 1917. Though on his papers it claims he was 19, he was actually 17 when he won the military medal. He was born in late 1900 in Leith, Edinburgh, my home city. Unfortunately, his details on how he won the MM have been lost after the archives were bombed in World War II. Story of 106-36, Acting Sergeant Henry Anderson, the Royal Scots. Born in 1881, Thurso, North in Scotland. Before the war he worked as a clerk for his father's locksmith shop. He originally served with the 3rd Battalion, Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders. He also served with the Durham Light Infantry, attached to the Labour Corps. He was then transferred to the Royal Scots and was promoted to acting surgeon. Not much else is known about his service, however. He did survive the war. He returned home and continued working at the family business. World War I British War and Victory Medal. Awarded to 3480 to Private Alfred Watson, 8th Battalion King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry. He originally held the number 5246 when he was with his previous regiment, the Yorks. He was born in 1882 in Northallerton, Yorkshire, England. Before the war, he worked as restaurant staff. He was married to a woman named Florence, and the couple had 2 children, Albert and Freda. He saw action in battles such as Pozieres, Polygon Wood, and Passchendaele. Alfred and the 8th were sent to the Italian front following the end of Passchendaele. He was killed aged 35, near Montallo, December 7, 1917. He is buried at Javera British Cemetery, in Italy. Medal Group. Awarded to 5703 Private Robert Ashcroft, 1st and 4th Battalion, South Lancashire Regiment. He was born in 1883, St. Helens. Before the war, he worked in a brick factory with his 2 brothers, John and William. He was married to a woman named Elizabeth. He arrived in France in early 1916. In October, he is documented of becoming unwell. He was given 3 days of rest due to suspected dysentery. However, he would never recover. Robert died, aged 34, on the 11th of October, 1916, leaving his wife to raise their son, who was born the following month. His son was named Robert in his honor. World War I Trio. Awarded to L-2480 driver Frederick Danson, Royal Field Artillery, later Horse Artillery. You can see Freddie here. His younger brother John is next to him. He was born on the 25th of May 1892 in Garstang, Lancashire, England. He worked as a servant. He joined the army at the beginning of 1915 and arrived in France in May that year. His 1914-15 star. All 4 stirrups belong to him. Freddie married his wife May on November 2, 1918, but failed to return to service the following day. He instead arrived back on the 4th. He was then under investigation for possible desertion. He was sentenced to hard labor for the remainder of the war, which ended a day later. He came home and worked with motor engines. He died whilst living in Bolton in March 1959. World War I Medal Group. Medals award to 15851 Private, later Corporal William Evans Watson, 2nd Battalion Royal Scots Fusiliers. He was born in Newcastle, England in 1896. He had originally worked as a coal miner before joining at the start of the war. He originally joined the men of 1st Battalion, however, following the Somme, he was transferred to the 2nd to replenish ranks. Whilst back home on leave in 1917, he married his wife Amalia. During his service with the 2nd, he was wounded twice. Unfortunately, William died in 1919, aged 23. He is buried at Hutton Henry Cemetery in Durham. Under each soldier. Trio awarded to be 7318 Private William Larmer, 2nd Battalion, the Scottish Rifles. He was born in 1898 in Hamilton, Scotland. He had a hard upbringing after the death of his father. William arrived in France in January 1915. His records highlight that he lied about his age, claiming to be 18. William was wounded in September 1915 during the building up to Bois Grenier. In March 1916, he was again wounded during an artillery strike whilst with D Company. He was discharged from service that same month and later awarded the Silver Wound Badge. In 1928, he left for New York. It is unclear if he ever returned